Hello.
Hello.
We have had such a rich day.
You've had a rich day.
I'd say I've had a rich 24 hours. I have really needed to take a look at my life just from the last couple of weeks, I'd say.
Yeah.
And there is some there's a big reset button that I decided to push in pretty much every part of my life.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling really excited about it.
That's awesome.
Yep.
I have nothing to say about it. I'm just kidding.
I can share more since this is such a rich conversation so far.
Yeah. Why don't you just share for the next 45 minutes?
What I'll actually say is I don't know. I felt so swirly the last week, not aligned with myself, not clear on what I want, not clear on the direction that I'm going, feeling disconnected from myself. I'm constantly in this heart posture of praying for more of God and really wanting to burn for him again and feel like I am in this relentless pursuit. You like how I mixed both of those things?
Relentless percent.
I'm just mildly dyslexic, and that is one of the perks is you come up with new words.
Excitement.
So, but I've wanted to have this relentless pursuit of God, this relentless pursuit of his presence and being with him and seeing the fruit of that in my life. And I really though I've been praying for more, and I pray God, stir up my hunger. God, I help me see how much you love me so that I can just respond to that love. Because the natural response of being loved is to love, right?
Yeah.
We can only love because he first loved us.
Yeah.
And so I don't spend a lot of my time and my energy and my walk with God focused on my love for him. I focus on his love for me, because I believe that that's where our response really starts. That's where our hunger, our passion, our devotion to him, the way that we want to love and impact the world. I think that's the birthplace of that passion, is just being lavished in his love.
Yeah. And
yet for years I've been praying those same kinds of prayers. And just in the last week, I've just been thinking man, I'm praying to burn for you, God. But if we were wanting to start a fire in the backyard, I wouldn't just pray for the fire to start burning.
Yeah.
I wouldn't just sit there next to the wood and the paper and the match or the lighter and pray God, start this fire.
Yeah.
I would build the fire, and then I would light it, and then it wouldn't be over after it was lit. I'd have to tend to it. I'd have to stoke the fire. I'd have to add more logs. There is process in burning.
Yeah.
And I've just been thinking man, I've been sitting here praying for more hunger, praying to burn for him, all of these things. And I feel like I'm missing out on the most important part of that, which is how much I play a part, how much my actions actually play a part in creating that burn.
Yeah.
And so I've been really examining that in the last week of my life, seeing where I'm at and feeling I don't feel shame. I feel I understand with how sleep deprived I'm at, with how hard the last couple of years have been. I understand where I'm at, and I don't want to enter into works or striving.
Yeah.
Yet I'm completely unsatisfied.
Yeah.
With where I'm at, and I want more, and I want to do something about it.
Yeah. Well, I feel like a lot of people, it's hard to even hear this without that competing religion and fear or guilt that enters in, because I like to bring up the fire analogy. I used to just be I should want to build a fire. I should just want to build this. What's wrong with me for not wanting to build the fire, and there was why am I so complacent about not wanting to build this fire? Why don't I know how to do the right things to build this fire? It's it was constant criticism. It was constant guilt. It was constant, it was striving. And so many people have lived with that we forget that, no, before you even start to think about posturing yourself to build the fire, you need to watch other people's fires and how rewarding it is for them. You need to remember and reflect on how great that fire was, what it provided for you before, the community it brought. It's like the gift and reward will usher you in to want to create more space for it. I think what we do is we jump into religion out of this fear of being not pleasing to God. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where that stuff starts, is this fear of being unaccepted, this fear of being rejected, this fear of being unwanted, this fear of being unworthy. Yeah. And we take it into our own hands thinking that we could do something to reverse that. And the whole response comes from seeing how good God is
and wanting more,
and then going, I want to make space for that in my life.
Yeah.
And one of the things I heard Damon Thompson say, and if you guys don't know who that is, check him out. It's just amazing theology that pulls you into an experience with God and understanding of God the Father. I love Damon Thompson. We love listening to him. He's really helpful for me, and he's a great resource for theology. If you're like, man, I've been so lost in religion and I want to learn more about how good God is, I would say definitely follow him. So what Damon Thompson says is, he says, if you look at a religious person that has all the right disciplines, and you look at a passionate person that knows who God is and has experienced him, their behaviors in the outside are probably going to look the same, but the fruit's going to be different, and all of their internal world's going to be different. Mm-hmm. And I think that's so important to think about, because I don't want to end up that whitewashed tomb in my life that, is doing all the right things externally, but is missing out on being alive in God, touched, in love and moved. And I also don't want to be the complacent person that isn't moved by that love that I experience. I do want to lean into that intentionality. And it's so interesting, because I feel like so many of us, what I do love about this past season too, is I really don't feel like we entered into a lot of religion. I really feel like we got to learn God's love for us in a season that was hard, where we didn't have a lot of intentionality to go after him, but we still got to experience like his loving kindness towards us. And we got to mirror that and go, I love and have compassion for you in this stage. Yeah. And I do think it's important to build a history of knowing that love in every condition that we live in. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd say that is the journey that I think created a lot of my initial burn for God and like hunger for him, was recognizing like, I want more of you, God, but then getting to peel all the layers back of my own shame, self-judgment, my beliefs that God was a punishing God, my beliefs that God was a distant God, my beliefs that I had to pursue God, that he didn't pursue me. There's all these layers that are in us that really need to be stripped layer by layer.
And revealed first.
Yeah. And that love needs to get into. And I'd say that is a part of like becoming on fire for God, so I remember there being times where I was like, God, I want to live for you. I want more of you. I want to see miracles happen in my life. I want to love the people around me. And then feeling all of this pressure, like I needed to be putting all of the work in and pursuing God. And then recognizing like, oh, that's actually going to hinder the fruit that's produced in my life. It's going to hinder my intimacy with God if I'm coming in believing that I'm the pursuer, because eventually I'll burn out. Yeah. Eventually I'll give myself credit for all of the things that I did, instead of it being about how God loved me so much and the way that God pursued me, the way he changed my life, the miracle that he did on through the person that I prayed for. And I just was there, like feeling overwhelmed by the love of God. Like we burn out whenever we have any of that pressure on ourselves. And so I think that's the first part of burning, though, is actually like seeing and acknowledging these different beliefs that come up while we're in our walk with God, when we're doing everyday life with him, and being like, okay, God, who do you say I am? Like, I believe you don't pursue. Like, what's the truth about who you are? How do I get more of you in my life without striving? What does that look like? And getting to like peel back all of these layers, like getting to see him clearly and rightly, inviting him in to clean our lenses and clean our glasses that we're viewing him out of, is the birthplace for burning for God. It's like where that intimacy is first created. It's where we learn his nature, where we learn his heart, where we learn his ways. Yeah. And I feel like that's how we have that burn that never goes out. Yeah. You know, that's how we like can have longevity in our walk with God. And I feel like I'm so ready for that. I feel like there have been so many layers over the last 12 years now that have been stripped away. And I don't feel that shame, that guilt, that condemnation. But now I'm like, man, I feel so free, but I want more. Yeah.
Well, like, it's interesting. You know, I was reading some of Bill Johnson's writing yesterday, and he talks about offense towards God. And it's interesting because when we get offended at God, it's usually because of a false narrative. We start believing something about him that's not true. A narrative is a set of belief systems based on experiences. So it's making sense of experiences you've had and making it mean something. What does it mean? Sometimes that's truth, but sometimes it's meaning that we've derived based on belief systems that we've based on other experiences we've had or things that we've observed. And we start to fill in the blanks. And sometimes we force narratives when we feel out of control to our pain, because we believe that if we have a narrative, it'll help us have more certainty we can grasp on. That will make us feel more powerful in an area that we feel extremely powerless. So this is one of the reasons why couples get offended at each other. It's the reason why we've had offense towards each other at different times in our lives and friendships, things like that. And it's because you'll go, oh, I experienced pain from that. And then you'll form a narrative. They don't even want what's best for me. That's a narrative. It's like, okay, what else is a narrative? They're always doing this. They don't have the best intentions for me. They think that I'm less than. They think that my work is unappreciated. Then you start building this narrative of all these like pieces of beliefs put together, and you start forming an overall outlook and world and view of a person or someone. You build a perception. Yeah. That perception influences the way that you have a relationship with a person. So like with God, you know, we go, okay, something painful happens. You pray and pray and pray for a miracle for someone, and they pass away. You pray and pray and pray for a breakthrough in finances. He doesn't show up. You pray and pray and pray for a community, and people don't come around. You start to let these little seeds come in of like, God doesn't want what's best for me, or God withholds good things from me, or God's punishing me for something. And we even ask God why, you know, these questions. And one of the things that Bill said, he said that people's demand for answers actually pulls in an answer when they need to be, when what's best for them is actually to enjoy God's presence in the midst of the mystery. And he said, I will not buy into a lie in exchange for being uncomfortable in the mystery of what I can't explain. And that's so powerful. I feel like as a culture, we've really abandoned uncertainty. And it's a need. Like Tony Robbins talks about these main needs, these core needs that every human being has. Well, certainty is one of them, yes, but uncertainty is also another need. We need mystery in our lives. Yeah. And if you look at the person that has all the answers in the room, they're the least happy person. Yeah. And they typically don't know all the answers. They just think they do. They're in denial. But those are people that have formed these strong narratives so they can have this strong certainty. But usually those are people that feel like the most out of control inside. A little kid that feels so scared. And the more that I'm like seeking God in this season, we had a rich conversation this morning. I had a conversation with a spiritual dad this week, last week. I was realizing like I'm scared to admit, and I'm afraid to admit places where I'm small still. Places where I feel this pressure to still have it all together. And even like with this podcast or with any influence that we have, or like any areas of business leadership, I'm like, I have to have the right answers. I have to know what to do. I have to have it together. And it's not true. And when we get out of that place of being able to be a son or a daughter, a child to a father, we move out of that space where he is the Messiah that draws near to the brokenhearted. And like, we're missing out on this grace he has for us in our pain and our hurt. Yeah. And then we don't get to experience that moment where we go, no, he is good. And I want to worship that God. Those moments where we can be real and authentic is where we get to experience his goodness. And then it leads us back to him to go back to that source and nowhere else over and over and over again. You know, it's like, good. It's interesting.
Yeah, I'd say like I've been trying to create more margin for that in my life. Like one thing that I decided to do this week was to just delete all social media off my phone.
Love that.
Which I haven't done in a really long time because I feel an obligation to it, because it's a part of how we, you know, have done organic marketing. We released our podcast to it. I'm responding to DMs. I'm sending links to our course. I'm promoting different products. Like, not that social media brings us hardly any income at all, but it's something that I feel like I've tried to commit myself to for what it can grow into in the future. And
there's also a lot of people that are so hungry, and you care about that, you know, like
Totally. There's so many different areas where I feel a responsibility.
Sure.
And it's like for long-term vision in a lot of ways. And yet I haven't really allowed myself to just take a break from it. And I have found myself in the last couple of weeks just feeling like I don't even feel like passionate to talk about anything. I don't feel passionate about content. I don't know the like direction that I want to go or what I want to be focusing on. And I feel like I'm reactively responding and trying to serve people through social media and feeling super drained by it. And anytime I have margin, that's like my next thing that I go to, because that's technically work besides my coaching calls. And I just, this week, I'm like, man, I'm wanting so much more of God, but what am I doing about it? And this is a part of like the tending to the fire that kind of hit me this week, where I was like, if I'm constantly tending to other things, how do I make enough margin to be tending to the fire, to be stoking it, to be adding wood? And I had this check-in with myself where I just was like, I want to click pause this week. And I want to commit myself to making more space to just be with God.
Yeah.
And I might need to have a bit more stillness and open time and have less things to do and lean into that discomfort. There's a lot of ways that we busy ourselves to medicate pain.
Yeah.
And to dissociate. And though most of the time I think I'm good at not dissociating with social media, for example, it felt like, man, I won't know if I'm dissociated unless I remove this.
Yeah.
And so that was one step that I took. And just literally, it's been 24 hours, 30 hours. An hour in, I already felt so relieved.
Yeah.
Knowing that I wasn't going to be creating any content, knowing that I wasn't going to be responding to any questions, knowing that I didn't have that responsibility, I recognized, oh, there's so much of my internal thought life that goes towards what can I give people? How can I serve people? 24/7.
Yeah.
And I've had like 50 ideas drop in my mind. And normally that's something that I would go and give. And right now I'm like, no, I want to just take that and have space with me and just God.
Yeah.
And I think already, like this morning, we were just recognizing, like Spence brought up, like, I don't want us to watch any TV shows or any movies. I want us to just devote any extra time we have to worshiping or listening to a sermon or doing something to like feed our spirits. Mm-hmm. And I just was like, yeah, like I'm craving, like, what does it look like to strip away all of the things that don't actually matter, all of the things that aren't leading to true life, so that I have margin and oxygen to breathe, so that my fire can actually start burning.
Well, I feel like we also took it so seriously to do this in a way where we're not posturing ourselves into striving. Yeah. Because I see so many people are like, okay, 30 days, I'm going without this, or it's like I don't have anything against timelines specifically, but I see so many people that go, I'm gonna force myself into this discipline, and that discipline's gonna save me.
And they lose the heart and the connection that's in it.
One of this is a great thing I heard from Damon Thompson that I heard from him, and then I kind of brought some of my own explanation to it. But one of the things he said, broken people don't have capacity for discipline. Like, people that have experienced a level of brokenness in their lives don't have capacity to just add in disciplines. Like the drug addicted person that is living in a halfway home, you're going to try and bring in a set of disciplines and like James Clear's Atomic Habits to that person and be like, okay, here's the book, follow it, and you're going to be a millionaire. It's like, no, that person's going to struggle to get free unless they have something that's in actual encounter with love that changes them at a heart level. And the gospel is not a set of principles and guidelines and more religion. And that's still what we make it. Like even John Crowder said, if there's even just 1% of your water bottle that's poop in it, are you going to drink that water? If there's only 1%, he's like, that's the same as religion. You can't even have 1% of it. Jesus talked about this warning of the leaven of the Pharisees entering in. It's going to ruin the whole lump. And he talks about the leaven of Herod too, which is just debauchery and all that. But it's like just a little bit of religion. We've postured our hearts to go, okay, we want to do this from a place of like heart desire. God, we desire you. When Paul's talking to Timothy, he's saying like, whatever is noble, whatever is pure, whatever inspires faith, go after those things. He's not saying to do what's right or wrong. It's not right or wrong anymore. It's what's going to bring you into a remembrance of your identity and an encounter with the Father who you are in union with, who is going to reignite your understanding of how righteous you are. It's like when we go into sin or we jump into these things are just not even just sin, but like less than, we're like missing out on encounters with God. We're missing out on our awareness of the kingdom that we have at our grasp right now. And I feel like that's our hunger can we strip things away so we have more margin, like you said, to enjoy what's available to us right now. Yeah. It's here now. It's here.
And creating enough space too, where it's like, for me, like I want enough space, not to just spend time with God, but like to get into that place where I'm so in love with him again. Yeah. Where there's enough margin to bask in his presence and get so poured into, get so loved by him that I remember how good he is and why I want to spend time with him. Yeah. Why I was so sold out for him for so long, why I was fully devoted and willing to lay everything else down just to be with him. Like that 4-year period where I would spend time with God literally every single night for sometimes up to 4 hours. I kid you not. Like I would cancel any plans just to go and be with God. I would leave parties early. I would do anything just to have that time and space with him. Yeah. And I look back to that season, and it was not out of striving or works or religion. I wasn't trying to earn my way anywhere. I just loved him so much. And the second that I got in his presence, I felt so alive inside. It felt so good and at home to feel connected in my spirit, to get to be in alignment with his truth, like getting to feel his presence. Like it brought me so much life, and I loved it so much that it felt so easy to never want to miss my time with him. Yeah. It's like how much I love you. It's like, I love you so much that it's so easy to be with you 24/7, like to the point where we have to be disciplined about making plans with other people. Yeah. Otherwise we are happy to just be together. Mm-hmm. Like we forget how much, I need girl time. This is good for me. I like this. But like, I want space in my life to do that again and to fall in love with him. And even listening to Damon Thompson this morning with you, like hearing him say, it's not just like the people that are burning for revival, on fire for God, and then the sinners. He's like, there's such a big gap in between where there are so many Christians in the church that are
cruise control,
basically sleeping. They're the sleepy Christians that are just on cruise control. Thank you for finishing that.
I couldn't tell if you were looking for the word, and I was like, I'm going to help, I guess.
But yeah, the way he said it, like cruise control Christians. And I was like, I don't want to be a cruise control Christian. I don't want to just go through the motions. I don't want to just have a history of beautiful miracles with God where I spent a lot of time with him and knew him. Like, I want to burn right now, and I want to be willing to do whatever it takes to burn. Yes.
And I guess like too, when I think about like, I don't want to be a cruise control Christian, sometimes my mind goes to, I don't want to be remembered for or seen as a Christian, like a cruise control Christian. Like if I like get away from some of that like external judgment language that's what it feels like for myself. I don't want to feel like I'm on cruise control. I want to feel alive and connected and present. I don't want to miss out on being present with with Jesus and being alive while I'm on the planet. You know, it makes me think about the movie Click with Adam Sandler, where he gets this magic remote that controls his life. He can fast forward moments, he can slow motion moments, he can pause moments, but he ends up skipping, like, you know, the remote starts learning him. So he ends up skipping arguments. He ends up skipping, you know, painful moments with like the boss. He ends up skipping long seasons, even where he had to do a bunch of work to earn a promotion.
He even skipped massaging his wife's back before sex.
Yep.
And went just to the sex, but missed all these moments
right
before.
And he was trying to fast forward through all these things that felt like burdens and responsibilities and pain. And what he didn't realize is that he ended up skipping his entire life. And you get to the end of his life and his kids are detached from him, because while he was fast forwarding, he went into like literal like cruise control, where he was kind of like a vegetable, couldn't connect with his kids. And he starts seeing all these moments where what he looked like when he was in fast forward. And at the end of his life, he was so disconnected. His wife married somebody else, disconnected from his kids, and he's dying, even though he had tons of money because of what he was focusing on, trying to get this promotion, trying to make tons of money, be this successful architect. And he just was in this utter agony. And he had this picture and glimpse into what he missed. And so then he realizes, oh, this was a lesson. And the angel gave him a lesson. He got to go back, and he threw away the remote. He had another chance. He's like, I want to be so present with my family. I never want to miss a moment like this again. And I feel like that's what it is. Like we have this moment and this vapor of a life to live fully alive with God, and to live fully alive in our lives, and to see every moment as a gift. And we get so focused. You know, I had this moment for me, if I'm getting vulnerable, like, where last week my, you know, spiritual dad, we're talking about stuff. I'm like, I'm just so overwhelmed. We have this new business, and it's like, it's blowing up. It's really awesome. And there's going to be a lot of money that we make from this. And it's really fun work, but we can't hire people fast enough. And I'm having to do the jobs of multiple people. So is my brother. So is our other partners. And he's like, we'll have to ask the question, why? And I was like, why what? He's like, why do the business and all this stuff? I was like, well, he's like, I mean, is God on it? I'm like, yes. Like, yeah, I feel God on multiple things. I was like, but I also feel like I add my timelines, and I add my pressures, and I add what it has to look like in the process. And so I think I fill in the blanks. So there's moments where I feel like God's on it, and then there are moments where I fill in the blanks with my own pressures I put on myself, and that makes me tired and overwhelmed. And it's hard to admit that, you know, to yourself, when you're like, there's the side of it where you're like, I just want to be a good son. You realize like, well, you still are, but it's my own judgment telling me I'm not because of a failure like that or something. But I also realize, like, if I keep doing this and we build really big things and make lots of money and have big opportunities, but I miss being a present person connected, how long until like that, enough of that happens where I just missed an entire season altogether? I miss years. I miss a decade. You know, is tomorrow even promised to us? And I think that's stuff that I think about and have thought about, but am thinking about it more intentionally with how do I want to govern my life over these next few years, knowing I have a baby, knowing we're growing in a lot of connection, knowing we're really hungry for community and building something with momentum, with God. And I'm realizing like I have a lot of authority over governing some of those things. And I just want to be connected. I want to be like connected to myself. I want to be somebody that's present, alive. And I really want to experience God. I really want to experience his love in my life. I want to be a mirror of that love to other people. And I think it does take that intentionality.
It's just so easy to get busy.
Yeah.
Like I've same, like this is part of, for you guys listening, like this is part of our talk this morning, is like we have gotten so busy, and maybe it's just been a week. Like sometimes I can't tell because it feels like I've been like this for like a year or a whole season. And then sometimes it's like, actually, no, a couple weeks ago I was feeling really, really connected. But it's so easy to get to this place where we get so busy and we forget to check in, and we forget to take care of our hearts. We forget to actually like enter into God's presence and just be with him. We forget to drink. You know, like the days that you're really busy where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so dehydrated. I'm just realizing I haven't had water all day.
Or you forget lunch.
Yeah. It's
which I've done.
It's how easy is it to do that with God and with our own hearts. And I kind of believe, even though I know they're separate, that they're one and the same. Like I really do believe whenever we get radically connected to ourself, it's kind of like connecting the pipes for the water to flow. So then when you go and get connected to God, it's so easy to feel connected and to actually get filled up because you're connected to you.
Your true self.
Your true self. Like checking in with your heart. Like taking time. Like we talk about this in so many of our podcasts. So you can go listen to any of those or check out our courses because that's the work that we do. But like the more you get connected to yourself and you're making margin for that, it's so easy whenever you're having a God encounter for it to really hit and for it to really fill you up and bring you back home, you know? And I'm in that space now where I'm like, I don't want to busy myself. Like I'm like the busiest free person that I know. Like I don't have many things to do. I have a lot of freedom and I have a lot of time and I don't have that many responsibilities.
Besides being a mom that, you know.
But, you know.
Your baby, yeah,
24/7. But it feels like there's not that much on my plate, even though I know there is. But yet I have things to do nonstop. Like there's always something I can fill my time with. There's always something on the list. There's always 30 things on the list of things that I need to do. And like how much more for you who's, you know, working full time and you have multiple businesses, how much more for those of you who are working a full-time job or even a part-time job and you have kids, multiple kids to take care of and responsibilities outside of your job and your kids. Like I know there are so many of you out there with so many things on your plate. And it's so easy to get busy and forget to take care of yourself, but you cannot forget to care for you. Like if you want to love the world around you, don't neglect yourself. Yeah. Because the more you neglect yourself, the more you go thirsty without actually spending time to satisfy that thirst in your spirit and in your soul, like you will end up burning out. And I know that if you're listening to this, I know you're someone that doesn't want that. I know that you want to burn too, but you have to prioritize you. And maybe, and I don't want to prescribe like go and fast X, Y, and Z. I'm not going to do that. But maybe there are things in your life that you could strip back. Yeah. Just to make a little bit more margin so that you can prioritize like building that fire with God so that you can start burning. Because it really does make everything else start glistening with hope when we are connected to him.
Well, it's how to burn without burning out. You know, like I think about...
Is this the podcast title that you just came up with?
How to burn without burning out?
I think so.
Maybe.
I like it.
Okay. Well, it just makes me think about some leaders we can't name, you know, because we've been told things in confidence, but like this Mike Bickel situation, you know, those of you who don't know, he's the leader of IHOP in Kansas City and responsible for a lot of people's lives being changed in the Lord. And the 24-hour prayer room over at IHOP, tons of people go there. I mean, Misty Edwards has come out of there. I mean, it's just, there's big stuff that's come out of that movement, and you can't discredit any of it, but he's had all these sexual abuse allegations, like several victims. And he was removed from his leadership position. No criminal charges have been made, but it just makes me sad. And I've heard so many other situations that are similar. And then we have Carl Lentz, very public moral failure where he cheated on his wife. And it's just sad. But then you think about moments like this, and we're talking about this. Do leaders get so focused on the gift they have to bring to other people and the pedestal they've been put on, they put themselves on, that they forget to take a drink, to experience God as a son, as a daughter, to bring their own brokenness to him and vulnerability? You know, is it important that we find a place to be small and don't just try to be big all the time, hoping that God will bless us for it? I see so much pressure in the Christian church, so much of the Christian church, for people to be the leader, to be the ministry person, to be in the spotlight, to build your influence, to build your fame. We have like influencer culture with Instagram and Facebook. Everybody's wanting to be famous. and we're trying to put our best face and foot forward and show everybody how great we are. But deep down, we feel deeply inadequate and hope that somebody will tell us something different. And we miss out on getting to bring our inadequate feelings to the Lord and be told something different, to be washed clean. And there's something like, there were studies that were done about, what happens with brain activity and what the most beneficial and the most pleasurable feeling that a person can experience based on brainwave activity. And number 2 was unconditional love.
Whoa.
Number 2 was love. Number 1 was authenticity.
Whoa.
It's being authentic. And love gets in a lot deeper when you're authentic.
Yeah.
It's like love can permeate. But it's like if you love me, but I've been putting on a show or I've been doing all these things, well, I'm going to take credit for my behaviors and the performance I put on.
That got you that love.
That got me the love. I'm going to go, no, but you don't love me, because if you knew it was underneath the performance, you wouldn't love me.
Yeah.
And that's where authenticity comes in. And we need to have a culture that we create to do that. And all it takes as a leader is being more authentic, but it's so scary.
Yeah.
We have this pressure with the podcast and the influence we've built in a small scale. There's still a pressure to like, okay, what do I need to give to people? What's the thing they need to hear? What's the thing I need to say? What's the thing? And it's like, no. Let's start from drinking from the well, and something's going to come out. And honestly, the most inspiring creative stuff comes from that place.
Oh yeah. When we're literally just being ourselves.
Yeah.
It's like our podcast for me actually feels like the place where I can just fully be myself, because I actually have time to share and like communicate my point. Other like small form content, whether it's YouTube or Instagram or posts or whatever, you can only give like a tiny snippet of information.
Such a game.
And so it's hard, because you're like, oh, there's so much space to be judged, shamed, misunderstood, so much space for people to draw assumptions and conclusions about you.
Yeah.
But I kind of always come back down to like, oh, well, if you live by the praises of men, then you'll die by their criticism.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, I'm not actually looking to you to feed my need for being seen, being known, being understood. Like I have to constantly keep going to God for that. But it really does feel like this space where we get to just come. Do you guys know we literally never prepare for a podcast?
Never.
Not like I'm proud of that. Like I would love to be the person who sits down and is intentional and does her research.
The 20 scriptures, looks up other situations, things to talk about.
It doesn't
relevant
happen.
Events.
We literally like we'll be turning on the cameras and we'll be like, well, what should we talk about today? And I'll literally, normally it's me who comes up with what we should talk about, and I'll say one sentence and we're like, great, go record. But it's like the place where we get to just fully be ourselves.
Yeah.
And so I love that. I love that we get to just have conversations and knowing, like getting to read y'all's reviews and hearing from the people who reach out to us and share how it impacts them. Like it really is such a blessing to get to like just be yourself and have it be impactful for people.
Yeah.
And for those of you listening, like don't underestimate the value and power of your vulnerability.
Yeah.
And of you choosing to be authentic, whether it's with mess or whether it's with something beautiful. Like it really is such a gift.
Yeah.
But I want to actually read them my little thing I wrote yesterday.
Oh, nice.
My modern day psalm.
Yeah, that's what I said.
This is me being like really honest and raw with where I'm at right now. And I already feel so empowered personally, just making the decision to press pause on all these different things in my life. And I feel so hopeful now too. Like, and I got momentum the moment I decided to strip away some of these different things like social media, TV, things like that. I felt like, oh, I feel alive again already, just feeling like the freedom and the space that I'm going to have just to be with God.
Yeah.
But as I was leaning into and feeling like some of that burden lift yesterday morning, I wrote, and I want to share with you guys what I wrote.
Sweet.
All of my knowledge won't save me if I never apply it. How could it transform me? Always consuming and never simply existing. Just constantly consuming so I can be giving. A toxic cycle I've always been living. Quiet it all down to marinate in God. Just Him, just me. Not for anyone else's well-being, not to make a living. Just to remember the beginning, when I was high on love. not high on giving. Coming back home to me, to him, I find they seem to be the same thing. But I want to get honest, boil it all down. I want God to be my lifeline, and right now he's not. But I'm trying to get back to that. How many times do I have to be stripped? How many times do I have to get to the bottom of it? How many times do I have to sit with a pen and journal until I get to the root of it? How do I find time for this when I want to just be a present mother? Too many things to check off the list, and most days I'm feeling overwhelmed by it. While simultaneously more in love and fulfilled than I've ever been, it's the push and pull I'm in, the depletion and emptiness, and scraping for God's love like it's limited, which is funny when I write it because it's the furthest thing from the truth. God, you're so abundant. Sometimes I get lavished in just an instant, and other times I'm reaching and believing you're like a man that's unavailable and always busy working. But this is why I'm always healing. These parts of me still surfacing, trying to take ownership of all these parts and not keep passing them. I don't have a pretty bow on the end of it. It just was like...
Thoughts?
Yeah, like I want to just get super radically honest with where I feel like I'm at internally and not let it be a judgment. Like I feel zero...
Just be curious.
Yeah, I feel zero judgment towards myself. I don't feel disappointed in myself. I just feel like, man, I want to get so honest and face myself because I want more.
Yeah.
And I feel like already it's propelled me forward, and I feel so excited for that extra space. And mostly just like, man, I miss living in that deep intimacy with God. Like I miss that deep feeling on a daily basis of like, I know him and I'm known by him, and it not feeling like head knowledge. Like there are definitely a lot of things, like I wrote at the beginning of that, like I'm so top heavy with knowledge right now. And because I've been so busy and exhausted, like with an 18-month-old, the last year and a half, like I feel like has stripped me in the best way ever. But yet it's definitely depleted me too. Like my ability in like learning how to take care of myself and learning how to make margin and space for God has been really hard, because when I have the space, I literally just want to exist and not think and not be touched, and I just want to like be a vegetable.
Yep.
But it's not leading to abundant life.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, man, I want to get to that place where I'm not living with head knowledge about knowing God or knowing how to heal. I want to live real and raw and like actually apply and spend time being with me and with him so that I can burn again.
Yeah.
And so we're excited. We just wanted to like invite you into some of this conversation, like let you know where we're at, because we're really like craving so much more for our lives. And it feels good to get to this point where it's like, no, we're going after it now.
Yeah. And I want to pray for you guys listening, but before I do, I guess, here's what I'll say about what we shared. We could feel this alone. It just me and Sammy, and we'll go after it together. Mm-hmm. And that's our plan and intention. But I wouldn't want you to hear this too and feel a pressure like I need to do that too or anything like that. But it can be a moment where you go, what about this conversation is making my heart beat faster? What's making me feel like, no, I'm remembering that. I want that. Like maybe there's parts of you guys that are hearing us and our vulnerability or transparency with where we're at, and you're going, I align myself with that. I have those same hungers and cravings that they do. And I want to seek the Lord in it. What does he have for me? What things what gifts does he have for me? What rewards does he have for me in connection with him? But just in closing, I want to pray for you. Jesus, I just thank you. Thank you for this opportunity that we have just in this moment to impact your kids with our lives, and not that we have these, crazy results necessarily we want other people to have, but just that we get to be real on a pedestal like this. We get to be authentic. We get to invite people into our story and where we're at. And God, I thank you that you can use those things, like the mundane and just where we're at, to invite other people into a journey. And God, I pray that you would burn, that you would bring the fire that only you can bring to burn in people. It just reminds me of the scripture, Romans 15:13. It says, "Now may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, that you may abound with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit." And just over your heart and soul, I give you permission to let go of the pressure to abound with hope by your own strength. I give you permission to let go of the pressure to be joyful and have peace by your own strength. I give you permission to let go of the pressure to have a passionate pursuit for God on your own strength. I give you permission to be wooed by him, to be a surrendered bride, to recognize his goodness again, to see the eyes of Jesus and know that there's a good father that's being represented by his life, that father died for you in him, that in Christ, God was reconciling the world to himself. That there wasn't a good, like a bad father and a good Messiah. They were in each other, reconciling the world. That he was inviting you into a relationship. He was displaying a perfect relationship, and he's inviting you into a relationship, a perfect one that calls you into your identity, your perfect identity as a child. I pray that you would be so wooed by his goodness, that God's goodness would truly lead you, me, Sammy, all of us into repentance and change to see and search God in this kingdom that he's made available to us. And I pray that this just wouldn't be a good idea, but this would be something that burns and burns and burns and continues. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
I want to recommend a course. I think it's only like $50. It's from Leslie Crandall. It's an Intimacy with God e-course. Yep.
What's that website?
It's $49. If you go to lesliemcrandall.com, so LESLIE, M as in Mary, and then CRAN as in Nancy, DALL.com. So lesliemcrandall.com.
Cool.
It's an Intimacy with God e-course, and I've gone through about half of it so far, and I'm excited to make margin to go through that in this season.
Nice.
But it's something that I would really highly recommend for those of you who feel like you have negative lenses of God. If you feel like you don't believe you can have intimacy with God, that you can be close, that you can know him, that you can be known by him, that you can hear his voice, that he is available, that he does pursue you. If you feel like you're finding yourself having limiting beliefs about how much intimacy with God you can have, then I highly, highly, highly recommend that you get that course. It is very affordable. Leslie Crandall is someone that I personally know who's really impacted my life. And so we'll also click that link in the description below. Click that link, put that link for you to click. So I hope that is an invaluable resource for those of you who grab it.
You don't make any money off that.
Yeah. I'm not going to make any money.
It's important to say.
In heaven, I will reap
make
the
so many rewards, and that's why I do things to reap rewards in heaven. Well, we love you guys as usual, and hope this blessed you. And if it did, please take time out of your day just to leave a rating and a review. It means a lot to us, honestly, just to see your guys' thoughts, feedback, and how stuff's impacting you. You know, we take a lot of time out of our days and energy to create these, not so that you can rate and review. It's so that we can bless you guys. It's just fun to read about it. So please let us know. We love you guys. We'll see you on the next episode.
Bye.
Later.